I am Paige Grissom. I'm the Director of Program Management at Quantified. I've been with Quantified for the past 4.5 years, working with some leading organizations in life sciences to deliver in large-scale simulator programs. And I've had the pleasure of working with Bayer and Kathy and Matt here for their journey with Quantified, and I'm really excited to have them here to share their experience and perspective firsthand. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce our speakers today, Kathy Driscoll and Matt Hooper from Bayer. Kathy brings over 20 years of diverse experience in the pharmaceutical industry across sales, account management, and learning and development. And Matt Hooper has over 15 years of experience as a mentor, trainer, and leader at Bayer. So together, they offer some really valuable insights at the intersection of sales excellence, training, and technology in pharma. We're really excited to have you both.
Thank you, Paige.
We are also joined today by my colleague, John McGrew, who will be monitoring the Q&A. So just as a reminder, as Tim mentioned, please, if you have any questions, feel free to submit them through that Q&A portal. That is where we will be answering Q&A from. All right, so to get us started here, we've already done introductions. We're going to start high level and really set up the challenge here. And Kathy's going to walk us through their product launch and really set the stage for the challenge we were trying to solve. We'll then talk about the solution, AI role play, how they found Quantified, and then go into some impact and results. From there, we're going to regroup and talk about all the lessons learned, share some feedback with the group on maybe what you can expect if you're also facing a similar large-scale launch, and then we will transition to Q&A. So to get us grounded here, there's a lot of noise in the sales training world right now, and there's three things that Quantified keeps on hearing, and that's the demand for more AI and integrating AI into internal processes. The second is that just-in-time training, or really the need to have the ability for reps to practice in their own time. And the third is the ability to scale and personalize that training. So Kathy and Matt, I know these were also topics that we discussed when we were planning out your launch. Kathy, do you want to get us started and just set the stage for us on your challenges and how some of these trends came up with your teams?
I'd be happy to. I don't like to dwell on challenges, but let's face it, they all exist. And I think that this scenario is probably not unfamiliar territory to those of our colleagues listening in on the line. So as you can see, we had a large group of representatives to train leading up to a national sales meeting. There were 500 representatives and about 60 managers at this time and 4 sales trainers. So you can see we were vastly outnumbered. And there's never enough time, including that of our field management team, who are crucial to us in terms of support and learning engagement. They have limited time as well. Compliance, we wanted to make sure we were in full compliance with Bayer's regulatory, legal, and compliance department, as well as staying on brand. And we were really looking for a way to provide representatives with objective, standardized assessments. So we wanted to be able to build in something that was flexible, where they received individualized, actionable feedback, and show up at a different way at the meeting. So in past approaches, lots of times, because of the compressed timeline, we're asking representatives to learn whatever their resources are almost on the spot at the meeting and jump right into refining their sales expertise with promoting those. This methodology allowed us to have representatives show up already knowing the content, already having received actionable feedback, and with a lot of practice sessions. So when they came to the meeting, they were ready to jump in. So that's part of the challenges we faced.
Thank you, Kathy. And I know this was a very big challenge to solve. You've already covered some of this, but what was it about AI roleplay and maybe Quantified in particular that made you decide to move forward with our solution? And Kathy, do you want to get started? And maybe Matt, we can hear from you as well.
Yeah, sure. So for me, it was a couple things. The first one, again, I'm going to restate this, was representatives really needed to know where they stood relative to the same training standards and expectations that they would in live training, because they're going to a live meeting. We know that they want to show up prepared as well, and it also helps reduce their learner anxiety. And the second thing that I didn't touch on too much before was flexibility. So I can't overemphasize enough that 24/7 availability for practice. So by having that flexibility, it removes the constraints of structured practice time with either a trainer or an AGM. And we created short scenarios so that they were designed in such a way that if representatives had a break between calls or meetings, or they had downtime over lunch, they could do a few practice hits, get some feedback, and fold it into their day. So the flexibility, I think, and the actionable feedback resulted in more of a pull down type of approach and feeling for the representatives rather than having us constantly pushing training towards them. And then Matt, I'll let you speak to the rest.
Yeah, I think also within that same vein about, you have this flexibility available to the reps, which is fantastic, but then the managers may be thinking, well, how do I track this? How do I keep an eye on this? And that performance data for the rep readiness was visible at any time. So the leaders needed a real-time view of that readiness to be able to coach proactively. So they were able to see practices, times, scores, those objective scores that we talked about. If there are reps that were struggling, managers would have the ability to see that and coach to it proactively. And so that could happen even before they attend in the launch meeting for those kinds of things. Another important part of how this really benefited was the ability to scale this entire thing. So as Kathy mentioned, we had over 500 reps that were on a really tight timeline for this. And so those solutions that we were putting in place with Quantified had to work, and I love this phrase, at enterprise scale, and it had to work at enterprise scale on day one. Now, not only did we have some activities for our reps that was for everybody, but we also had some subgroups, like some smaller groups that were individualized. So there would have to be not just even one particular activity that we gave to everyone, but also additional things that we're practicing for different reps with different approaches, with different products, other things that we wanted to fit in there. So the scaling happened at multiple different levels, and that was available to us on day one. And then the last part of this, really, I think from this standpoint, is wanting a solution that had been battle tested and was mature in the space. And that's really how this felt, because we were comfortable that we could meet those performance expectations and do it within the tight timeline that we had and still help to achieve the outcomes we needed here at Bear. And so by doing that, working with Quantified for that, everything that we were able to accomplish there saw a quick turnaround, not only for completion of the activities, but also for how that showed up in the outcomes out in the field for our representative sales force.
Yeah, thank you. And Matt, thinking about all of the components here, which did you find to be the most important when you were, searching for a solution, or what was maybe the most impactful?
Yeah, I think a lot of what was going on here really was about, you know, for me, that immediate structured feedback. So you didn't have to have someone always in the room with a representative to be able to get that. And then also just from the standpoint of what are we going to do with it when we see that information, those training insights being actionable really made a difference for the managers and the reps both. So for me, I really saw that play out in how reps were able to approach this, and then also how they were able to approach being coached and taking these actionable insights and putting them out into the field. I thought that was really important for what happened for us.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. And that's a great transition into some of the results here. So our company name is Quantified. We love the data. We have some really awesome results to share from this program. Kathy, do you want to walk us through some of these outcomes?
Yes, because this is my favorite part of talking about this. Well, one of my favorite parts about talking about this project was the results, because we all know numbers don't lie. And I have to tell you, you can read the numbers for yourself across the top. These results overall exceeded our expectations. So we had 100% engagement with the 97% mastery rate of the content. So we measured the accuracy of their messaging and their inclusiveness, over 4,500 practice sessions, and over 500 representatives engaged. And some additional numbers that aren't reflected on the slide that I think are important to note was overall, there was a 47% improvement rate, and that number represents what their initial score was versus their best score. And that was irrespective of whether they started out with a low score, medium, or high score. Everyone had a shift to the right in terms of improvement in their mastery skills. This also represented over 600 hours of practice time with their resource and receiving feedback prior to even coming to the meeting. And to break it down by users, that's about 9 practice sessions per user. So we were absolutely thrilled with the level of engagement and participation from our users.
And Kathy, that 9 average practices per user, that's an impressive number there. How does it resonate with you though? How would that compare if you didn't have, an AI solution?
Yep. So I love to measure results, and those of us in training know that it's often very difficult to really measure the impact or get pure objective numbers on training stats. Before we use this platform, we didn't really have a way to measure how often and how completely representatives were practicing before showing up to a meeting. Our assessment was when folks came to the meeting, you could tell they had practice. When we got down to activities and exercises, you could tell those who practiced against those who practiced very little or not at all. So this was huge for us, Paige.
Thank you, Kathy. And, those are great stats. There was also some qualitative results that you saw from this program. Matt, do you want to walk us through some of those?
Sure, yeah. So as you're looking at this and you're thinking about how is this going to help us here in the training department, right? So benefits for the training team, I mean, we clearly saved a lot of training hours here by allowing the representatives, as Kathy already said, to spend over 600 hours practicing where we didn't have to be present for that. And knowing that those hundreds of trainer-led hours that are saved via this automated, assessment and scoring that's going on really allows us to invest our time into other places in ways that we think it matters the most, right? As we move forward with regards to the actual launch meeting itself. So that really put everyone in a good spot. Then that standardized practice, the fact that it's consistent and objective evaluation, it makes it fair. It makes it aligned across all of the reps that we have. And everyone across the country is coming at it from, slightly different angles. Yes, they're speaking about the same product, but they know there are other things that are going, other factors. But in this case, every rep practiced against the same approved scenarios, had the same grading rubric, and that removed that variability and then ensured that consistency of how the message was supposed to sound and also how it was scored for them as well. So those scenarios were built directly from approved materials. So we were able to put things through our approval process so that by the time it actually reached a representative, there was no question about this. This was approved, brand approved, compliantly approved. Everything was headed in the right direction from the time the rep opened the application to the time they finished their practices. So all of that was covered and included. Another thing that we really liked about this was the performance data, which enabled more focused, data-driven coaching. You could see where people were on track, maybe people who needed some support. You could see how many practices were happening in real time. And that was a conversation point that managers were then able to have with their representatives. And another part of it really is about that high value time. So when we talk about being able to practice beforehand, and Kathy mentioned this earlier, it really made a difference that when the representatives walked into the room at the launch meeting, they already had exposure to this. They had already had a chance to run through it multiple times. So instead of catching everyone up in the first 40 minutes of your workshop, everyone walks in and is ready to go. And that's really spending that time on what we want to focus on, the practice or additional, information that we want to add to their practice. That's beneficial to the reps in the field because it makes the meeting more efficient and allows everyone to be on the same page immediately. So it was really noticeable for us to be able to do that. And then I know we've mentioned the scale of this already. The scalable delivery is important, knowing that everyone's got different needs out there. The sales force in our case was over 500 people. We were able to get them what they needed and also get the subgroups what they needed as well. So whatever application you need, we were able to work with Quantified to get those flexible things put together and provide that for our representative force.
Thank you, Matt. And you briefly mentioned compliance, and I know that's often a topic that people are really interested in because, it is tough sometimes to get these things through compliance. Kathy, you were instrumental in that process at Bayer. Do you want to talk a little bit about the compliance and how we navigated that so well?
Yep, I'd be happy to. My best advice for those looking to go down a similar journey would be early and often communication. Do your homework. Meet with everyone that you possibly can within the organization and gather a cross-functional informed team. So I am not an expert in AI, nor would I ever propose to be one. But what I did learn was there's a number of people already in our organization at Bayer who are. I didn't even know before I started this process that we had a digital learning team, that we have people much more versed in this arena than I am. And that collective team helped inform the discussions I later had with our medical and legal review team, so that when I started those conversations, I already knew the answers to a lot of the questions they would be asking, and I had secured some champions. So the more that they knew ahead of time, the better, so that when we finally presented a proposed project, they already knew this and had a level of comfort. So start early, do your homework, and secure your champions, I would say would be my takeaways.
Thank you, Kathy. So really awesome results, and thank you for sharing all of that. Since we've completed this initial program using AI Roleplay for this really specific purpose or event, this launch, we've done a lot more with Bayer and expanded how you're using the platform. Matt, we've worked together really closely on New Hire very recently. Do you want to walk us through how the use of Quantified has evolved at Bayer?
Yeah, the timing couldn't have been better, really, for what we were accomplishing here and what we were going to need to accomplish after that initial launch. And so, what Paige is referring to here first with regards to new hire certification. So, one of the exciting things about launching something new is that a lot of times that means you're going to increase your headcount. And so, for us, that required an expansion of people, and we added a lot of people at one time. And as you've already heard from us, there were 4 of us in the training department. So, when you have 60, 70 people involved in a class, how many hours can you spend, to do these kinds of things with everyone in order to get them certified and up and running? So our new hire certification process was speeding up the time to their consistent product communication. And that training happened before any customer interactions occurred. And so they were able to be certified via the AI tool and our work with Quantified to get a consistent and fair balanced certification process there. So people have that flexibility to do it right at the end of our core training classes. Then on the follow-up, the message pull through. Later on, we could add and have added additional, objection handling workshops, messaging pull through. We've had market access involved in this. Different things that, again, are all approved before they ever make it to a representative, but it helps to keep the team sharp with ongoing practice, and they can be updated on any key messaging as it changes or shifts throughout their time in the field. And then with the continuous development part, this is something that we're really excited about with, refining skills with advanced scenarios. Targeted coaching is important. That's something new that we're working on right now with some coaching simulators that Quantified has available for us that's going to really speak specifically to certain selling skills that we want to have reps work on in the field. And then we can also do personalized improvement plans. Like there are so many options here for what we have available to, again, scale it out to the field for the needs that we have identified. So you've always got this framework, right? So we can streamline those future launches and maintain training consistency. And to that end, I know Paige may mention this at some point, but other therapeutic areas within our company have used Quantified since then for launch purposes. And so I think we're at 3 now that have used Quantified's AI tool enabled to be able to get their representatives ready for these launches as they're happening. So that really has been noticeable for us, and the scale of it and the speed of it and the efficiency of it has been extremely helpful for us here on the training team. And also, I think your turnaround and growth from what the reps see and how they're using this in the field has also been very noticeable as well.
Thank you, Matt. And, let's recap. This launch was clearly very successful and we saw some results to be proud of, but things aren't always going to be perfect, and implementing a new training program is a huge undertaking. There's a lot of behind the scenes work involved. What was that experience like, and what's your advice to anyone on this call that might be facing a similar launch under pressure? Kathy, you want to get us started on this one?
Yeah, I think I already spoke a little bit about securing your champions early and having early on discussions before we approach this particular case we're talking about today about the national meeting. I had been working on this along with Peter Frank in our inside Bear for about a year and a half, investigating vendors. We were really looking for a platform such as this that provided individualized feedback, and we piloted it with a small group. So we structured it in such a way where we had 50 representatives and 10 managers. Inclusion of the managers was key because those are the folks responsible for that learning transfer environment, which is crucial to having an effective pull-through. So we ran that pilot for 6 months and measured the results, the active group versus the control group. And the results were very, very clear that the pilot was making substantial and impressive results via the use of this platform. So once we had some proof of concept, it made leadership adoption and this broad expansion much easier, because during the course of that pilot, we were testing and learning, right? So we made adjustments very quickly to make the platform and the rollout more relevant and valuable when it came to the meeting. And can't emphasize enough, normalize the why. I like to lead every conversation with the why. Why are we doing this? It's to support business outcomes. And it is in addition to everything else that we're already doing in the training department. And it just has a cumulative important effect on results.
Yeah, well, real quick, as somebody who was involved in that pilot, normalizing the why was really important. I think that, you may already be thinking to yourself, there's going to be some that are looking at it going, AI, I'm a little bit skeptical to say the least, or maybe I'm afraid of it, or whatever it might be. And there was some of that around. But by talking about what this was and clarifying what we were using it for faster readiness, for fair, consistent evaluation, it's a safe space for reps to practice. That's essentially what you want to accomplish. That really did make a difference as far as reducing that skepticism and then boosting the adoption overall. And then the last part of this that I just want to touch on is you got to have a strong partner in this. And so for us, and I know Kathy was involved in this way before I was, with regards to kind of identifying who we were going to work with on this, you want somebody that has a strong, responsive support. And Quantified's US-based team has been exactly that for us. It's been a game changer, because anything that we've had with regards to any issue or something that needed resolved or addressed, as Paige can attest, I have emailed her at odd times all over the place, and we've had things, taken care of, handled. Very smooth process, and that has been significant for us to reduce any kind of delays. We've been able to get things approved and put through and out within weeks, not months. And so that's going to make a huge difference for your Salesforce turnaround time as well.
Thank you so much, Matt and Kathy, and we appreciate your partnership as well. Something that you said, Kathy, kind of rung a bell for me, and that's talking about calibrating fast. So, as you know, in these launches, things change really rapidly. The messaging might change last minute, or they need to learn something new, and it's not always we have those weeks and months to make those changes. What was that process like? And can you talk a little bit about how that iterating worked?
Yes. We never have enough time. We always have to pivot quite quickly. So we were able to do that based upon having internal feedback loops in terms of focus groups, office hours, whatever we heard from the field. We came up with actionable solutions through our partnership with Quantified, and we were able to adjust on the fly. So people in the pilot, people who have experienced the journey of our AI supplemental training over time have, I think, really felt those calibrations and those improvements. And it's resulted in more widespread adoption.
Thank you so much. And, just thinking back on the whole process, and this question is kind of open for you or Matt, is there anything that you would have done differently if you had to run this launch again?
Oh my gosh, what a great question, Paige. Been less nervous. I'm always nervous because I want things to go really well, but I can't overemphasize enough the importance of preparation. If you've done your preparation, you have a great collaborative working team. That helped reduce my nervousness about having it go well. And then when it went so well, I think that was really my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, that's great. And those results are really impressive. 100% engagement is something to be proud of. So it absolutely went well, and you should, give yourselves a pat on the back, because you worked hard in this launch, and it was very successful. And I hope we could make it just a little bit easier for you. That wraps up our speaker section. So we'll move on to Q&A here, and we'd love to answer some of the audience's questions. If you haven't submitted any through the Q&A portal, please do. John has been monitoring those. He's going to pick as many as we can answer here in the time that we have. And without further ado, John, I will hand it off.
Yeah, thanks, Paige. And thanks everyone for the questions that are coming in. It's great to hear from Matt and Kathy, their experience here. So I will do my best to postal work these sequentially, roughly in the order they came in, but certainly in consideration of what we hear at Quantified, so that we can address what's probably front of mind to the most folks here. But maybe to start, a very common question we get, just the anecdotal reaction from the field. How when reps encounter Quantified or AI Roleplay for the first time, what's it like for them? What is the feedback that you get, and certainly any surprises that subsequently that tends to drive an adoption?
Matt, may I go first, and then perhaps you can add your experiences as well?
Please do, Kathy. Go right ahead.
All right. So when we first launched, we introduced the pilot program, right? This was uncharted waters at Bear. So there was a mixed bag of reaction because people really didn't understand it. There's some general AI fear out there across the general population, so to speak. So we did our best to really address any concerns, both in a large scale format, in meetings and discussions, and individually with folks who had questions about it. And I have to say, once people went through the platform, they became more comfortable with it. And a lot of those initial concerns just kind of dissipated. And in fact, we had some people who had some concerns, some of them around data privacy, all of those things, job security, all that kind of fell by the wayside when they saw the results, when they felt the improvement in their verbalizations, and when they showed up at the meeting feeling confident versus anxious because they maybe weren't as prepared as they could have been. So that was kind of how it unfolded for me. But Matt, you please respond as well.
Well, and I could see that in real time as somebody who was experiencing the pilot, had a team of people asking me questions at the time. And I thought, okay, this is something we're going to do. I'm going to lean into this and try and make the most of this. But not everyone's going to approach it that way initially, because there's always that fear of, how is this going to affect my day to day? What is it going to affect my day to day? Which is why it was very important for us to get, as Kathy mentioned, manager buy-in, and also to clarify what the why was behind all of this. And then when we received feedback, we actually got a lot of survey feedback about this, of course, because this is the first time we had done it. And it was overwhelmingly positive. And even some people who had been skeptics at the beginning were able to say, I didn't understand the why at the beginning, but now that I've gone through this and done the launch and seen what I was able to accomplish and how I felt when I went into the meeting, this was worth it. I'd absolutely do this again. And so from that standpoint, it really was a noticeable difference in people's approach because, as Kathy said, uncharted waters, and you never know what you're going to get when you jump into that. You think that you're doing what's best for everyone, but you hope that they also end up agreeing with you on the back end. And that's what happened in this case.
Very cool. No, I appreciate it. Deb's got a great question here. And Paige, certainly this might be something you can speak to as well. Was the structured feedback customizable to how you coach and to your expected behaviors that you want to train to in the field?
Sure, I can get started from just an implementation standpoint here. So the feedback is directly aligned with the already approved materials that you have. So if there's a certification rubric, if there's a sales framework, we take and ingest those materials and we match our feedback and scoring one-to-one. So the type of feedback that your reps would be getting in that one-on-one training is the same type of feedback that they will get in the simulator. It's just standardized, right? So all of these 500 individuals were getting the same feedback, the same objective feedback across territories, across job units. But it is, yes, exactly matched to your already approved rubrics, frameworks, etc. And Kathy and Matt, I don't know if you have anything to add there.
I have something to add, if I may. So the managers also had a dashboard of their team's practice sessions and the areas they were doing well and perhaps needed assistance with. And this is somewhat related. We were also able to look as an internal team to sections of promotional resources where folks didn't score as well. So, or not surprisingly, these sections, remember I said there were small scenarios, the small scenario that had some of the new data for these folks, they scored a little lower on. Well, we would expect that because this is new information. So we built upon that when we were live.
Awesome. And so, honestly, a great segue to a question that we've seen a couple times pop up in the Q&A. So we're talking about the feedback from the field, the feedback from end users, but in addition to just getting buy-in from frontline managers at the outset, how's the solution been received by your frontline managers, and what are they doing with the data that they now have at their fingertips?
That's a great question. I'm not sure which one of us is. Matt, you might be able to respond to that one, and then I'll add on if that's okay, because you right now are working more closely with the field than I.
Yeah, I think there's, initially it was, you want me to do what? And then the immediate follow-up was, okay, well, that makes sense. So that they're ready to go, right? Everyone's looking for time to performance. What can we do to shorten that time to performance? And so this became an important part of that, especially as we, launch something new and then add on and change and adjust messaging as we go forward. So now we're at a point where now that managers have seen what this is able to do and allow their reps to practice without them having to be present for every single conversation that's happening. The questions that I'm getting now is, well, what are you going to do next? And that's why we're excited about things like the coaching simulator that can just be, additive. It can be on top of that proactive coaching that the managers are getting. The feedback, initially is just, hey, like anybody else would be when you're handed something brand new. They're like, okay, how do I use this? What am I going to do with this? Can I break it? Like, how am I going to go through this process? And after everyone got that initial experience, there was now a level of acceptance. And also now that we have added different things and Quantified has brought us different options, that has helped too, because you don't want people to fatigue on the same exercise over and over and over again. And I think that's been important for how we've been able to address it. And also the manager's buy-in does make a lot of sense for them because it's just additional coaching for their reps. And again, if all you're looking for is, hey, we need better performance and we want our reps to grow, this is only going to help you in that situation. And they've really identified and latched on to that.
Awesome.
And those are great points, Matt. And the only thing I would add to that, because it was so well stated, was there was, just as there was a range of reactions when the pilot was first rolled out to representatives, that range of reaction went across sales leadership as well, right? So we had some folks that were, I remember one manager said to me, you mean to tell me like there's an AI training tool that'll give feedback so I don't have to like keep scheduling like multiple one-on-ones, like people can take ownership of their own improvement. So all in there. To other folks who may not have been vocal about it, but you could tell they were less on board, but it all evened out in the end. We all have a tendency to be a little apprehensive about something that's new. Anytime you throw the acronym AI in there, it kind of heightens nervousness for a lot of folks, but once they were in it and had experienced it and felt the results, it went a lot smoother.
Awesome. All right, here's one that might be kind of a challenging question, if you're okay with it, but looking for advice on selling internally to senior leadership, and perhaps that's sales leadership as well. Matt and Kathy, I'd love to get your thoughts there.
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, do your homework, take advantage of internal partners who know more than you do. And I'll give you an example. When I conducted the pilot, I had reached out to, prior to constructing the pilot, digital learning team, managers, brand, data insights, our tech and IT learning departments. And when I built the pilot, I had an active arm and a control arm. And I leaned heavily on the brilliant mind of my data insights colleagues because he had information that I did not have. We designed the pilot in such a way that we compared territories who had similar selling attributes, not representatives. So it was completely representative agnostic. So it's not as if we chose top performers or low performers. It was agnostic of that. It was just what territories had similar selling environments in terms of access, potential, etc. And I also enlisted his help in compiling the results and shared when I spoke with leadership about the why, the objective, the pilot design, the pilot results, And then I got questions like that, questions that would have exposed any gaps I had done in the preparation. And they were a bit skeptical because the results were so strong, but it was almost unanimous kind of head nodding, like, yes, this is something we should look into. So do your homework, design it as best you can, engage interest before you go to that final presentation, and have a couple advocates in your back pocket. Or in the room, if better.
Awesome. All right, this one might be a fun one. Just came in here. So, Kathy, Matt, how has your reputation changed internally now that you've brought in AI and innovation to the organization?
Well, it's interesting because I'm very, very proud of it, honestly. But I have to say, like, every time somebody sees me, they're like, oh, it's the AI girl again. Like, oh, it's the AI queen. Oh, AI. No, AI is not the answer to everything, but it is a great solution as an add-on and to be able to do things you can't do otherwise. I'm extremely proud about it. If you can't tell, I love talking about it. It lit up all the synapses in my brain. And you all know when you're passionate about something, people feel it and sense it. And I think that added to any credibility I have more than anything else. So thank you for the question.
Matt, anything to add there?
I think it's funny the way Kathy said that. I have had people, because I have dealt in this last year, I really work closely with the new hire groups. And so that's been kind of one of my focal points. And they have been one of our additional uses for the AI tool. And so for me, I like convincing someone who is skeptical that, number one, this is here only to help you. So let's try it and figure this out. And so now my reputation amongst the new hires is, well, if I have a question, at least I know who to reach out to. And then I can reach out to Matt and find out about this. And so I've been able to turn a lot of maybe anxiety or angst initially into, oh, this is here to help me. And so I like having that reputation with regard to this, to the tool itself. And I can understand where Kathy's coming from because she got into it earlier than I did. So people were like, what are you talking about? She's going to make us do all these things. Mm-hmm. It's not about that. It's about, hey, listen, let's work and go through something that is going to be what's best for you and help you get somewhere that you want to go quicker. And so to that end, it has been an interesting but very positive response as I start to get involved with these people as they're coming in.
Very cool.
I've seen Matt do it. He's very good at putting people at ease. He's very good at it.
I was just going to add that Kathy's really underselling herself here because this has expanded through other therapeutics and at Bayer. Kathy, you really have been the champion and the one that everyone looks to. You got this through compliance. You brought this to the organization, and as we have expanded, everyone still goes to you for that knowledge and the interest. So you really are. You are the champion and the expert over there, so don't sell yourself short.
Well, thank you kindly, Paige.
All right, we'll try to grab just a couple more here in the interest of time. So we've seen a few questions here that are in the spirit of understanding what happens if a rep is performing poorly in the platform. What do we do with that? How do we identify that? Can you speak to perhaps underperformance as identified in Quantified?
So each AGM, or in our case, a manager, so if you're looking at a manager who runs a team, every team is approximately 15 to 23 people in the way we're set up right now. They have administrative capabilities to be able to see and notice when there are things that are maybe, like you say, consistently poor performance within the practice tool. So there can be proactive responses there. You can do those things individually. You can do those things as a group, however you want to address them. But the access that's given shows all of the data that you would need to be able to identify that. And so each manager has that at their fingertips whenever they feel the need to want to do that. And there is a consistent question, that has come up over time about, like, I've seen even kind of pop through here about, well, if they're being compliant or how are those things being handled or addressed. Again, those are things that you can speak with your representative about specifically and proactively so that you can see what has been done correctly within each practice and also what has been missed within each practice. So those things are listed out for the representative to see. And so the manager will also have that information available as well. if there is any kind of a question, it can be proactively responded to. And they have the ability as administrators of their teams to address those things at any time.
All right, so let me grab one more question here. This has kind of come up from a few different angles as well, but if we could speak to the time it took to get this platform installed and to build a simulation, a few questions in that spirit. Matt, Kathy, if you wouldn't mind speaking to your experience there.
Developing and installing was the easiest part of this, quite frankly. Like the heavy lifting in my mind was the preparation and advocacy part. It took longer, but it was a fun ride. I enjoyed it. And then in terms of how to structure the platform and build it, like I'm thinking it's going to be super complex. I'm really going to have to allow a lot of time for this. Like my job in the process was making sure that the rubric was accurate and aligned to our live training standards and expectations, as well as that the brand input was correct and it was realistic for the end user. Quantified's job here, or whatever partner you choose, their role is really to build upon that. So I thought that was going to take a long time. And this is what I mean about working with people who know more than you do. Like they built it in parallel with my development. We tested it out with a few people. It was, that part was quick, in my opinion. That was a couple weeks and sometimes a week versus months and months. So I hope that helps alleviate some fears.
Yeah, not uncommon from a quantified perspective either. It's really, in order for us to deliver purpose-built, lifelike simulations, we certainly have to be informed of how you train your team today. And so every organization has a different level of maturity there and preparedness to move forward. But we're able to move pretty quickly on the quantified side of things. So quite a few questions here around specifics related to our particular platform, how we treat data over intention, a couple questions about pricing. We'll make sure that we leave you with our information and happy to take those offline, however helpful. But with that, let me go ahead and turn it back to Paige here to close this out.
Thank you, John. And I really appreciate all of you joining today. Huge thank you to our speakers, Kathy and Matt. And of course, big thanks to Tim and L10 for hosting us today. As John mentioned, I know there's some questions we didn't get to today. Happy to take those offline. If you'd like to get in touch with us or learn more about Quantified, please scan this QR code that you see on screen here. And I will pass it back to Tim. But thank you again, Kathy and Matt, for such an excellent discussion.